My name is Dan Bruno. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Patrick Bruno. I'm from Olympian Village, Missouri.
And what is this truck?
This truck is the second unit tractor from the 1978 movie Convoy.
And how did you find this truck? I know it's quite a story, right?
Yeah, in short, the movie came out in 2000 on DVD and for the first time, and I stayed up late one night watching it and realized there was over and over again and realized there was more than one truck. So, doing a lot of research, starting to pick it apart, I realized that the only name on the doors of the trucks that was real was Bruin Sand and Gravel out of Logan, New Mexico. And so on the way back from trying to drive the dual truck home from Los Angeles in October 2005,
Which is probably another story.
another long story, after leaving the truck with a blown engine in Kingman, Arizona, we stopped in Logan, New Mexico on the way back to St. Louis. And I walked into Bruin Sand and Gravel, into the scale house, and I said to the lady that was in there, "This is going to sound crazy. My name's Dan Bruno. I'm a fan of the movie Convoy, and I think you guys had something to do with the movie Convoy." And she said, "I knew you'd stop by one day." And she rolled her chair back off her desk, and opened this bottom drawer and just started handing out just stacks of original documentation from the movie.
She knew that you would stop by one day?
Because Nerd Me had put together a big website detailing all the different trucks at the different spots. And as I would research and find out things, then people from the movie would contact me, production staff, etc. So by October of 2005, I had quite a semblance of information and stuff about the movie, and had it all out there, and they had seen the website. And so she started handing me the documentation and said I could have it. And then she says, "Well, we have the truck from the movie." I said, "That's why I'm here. I'd like to buy it. Is it for sale?" She says, "Well, it's wrecked. It blew a steer tire in 1985 and barrel rolled down US 54.
So they worked it after the movie.
After the movie, the truck became a cement mixer, a transit mixer. So just with the bare frame, they put a mixer body on the back, put different suspension wheels on the back, and it just became a cement mixer, just part of one of their fleet. And their fleet was pretty aged and worn. Anyway, they wrecked the truck, and she showed me pictures of the truck. It was smashed down to about that tall. And I said, "Well, can I see it?" And she says, "It's in a quarry. Our quarry is about 20 miles north of here, and we'd take you there right now, but there's a lot of rattlesnakes. You have to come back in the winter." I said, "Okay." And she gave me the name of her son, who was the nephew of the guy that provided all the trucks for the movie. He was electrocuted in the quarry in 1987. To my knowledge, at the time, they had this truck just sitting there. So
What was left of it?
What was left of it. So I worked a deal with them to go ahead and buy it. And then in 2007, on the way to the Colorado Springs convention, we stopped by there to kind of figure out the logistics of how we're going to do this. And as he took us to the quarry and drove us to the quarry, I looked back to my left, and the tank trailer was there. And I started flipping out, because that was going to be the hardest thing for me to find. As we looked around the quarry, all the police cars are there. The car that went through the billboard is there. The car that got switched between Spider Mike and Pigpen's truck, the police car, that Matador, it was there. Everything was there. And
It just all went to the quarry after the movie?
they bought it. So all their paperwork showed that they were paid $17,000 by EMI Films for all the trucks they provided for the movie. And they basically signed the check back over to the studio in exchange for this truck, the Widow's Brockway, Big Nasty's little red Mack single axle, the tank trailer, what's left of the other tank trailer, the police cars. Like, it was a veritable Convoy junkyard. And so
Hiding in a quarry.
sitting off US 54 between Logan and RV.
Okay, backtracking a little bit here. You said you watched it so many times you recognized the name, or you eventually saw that there was a name on the door.
That wasn't made up, yes. So
was it something that they missed in editing or something?
No, it was so Fred Bruin had provided most of the trucks for the movie. Kind of a long, convoluted story. They had this sand and gravel operation in Logan, which is just northeast of Tucumcari. They did a lot of extra work for a broker named Bill Davis out of Albuquerque, who was his own storied individual, got involved with Hollywood by basically transporting what I've been told are stolen horses from New Mexico out to Los Angeles for all big filming things. So when Convoy came up, they get a hold of Bill Davis, they want trucks. Bill Davis asked around to his pool of lease operators. The money was good enough that Bruin said, how many trucks do you want? And just pulled them off jobs and sent them. Rat's Peterbilt, the blue Peterbilt cab over 352, that was one of his. The gray and black Kenworth Lizard Tongue was his. Old Iguana's red and white Peterbilt was his. And then some other trucks that appear in the background a lot. And then a bunch of trucks they used to haul production equipment. All came from him, Fred Bruin. So then after the movie, he buys all this stuff. Took the truck to the premiere of the movie in Tucumcari, had it out front. After the movie, he just turned it into a usable truck for them.
When did it end up getting smashed?
It got smashed in 1985, and it got put into service probably 1979, like pretty soon after the movie. And so this was a 1970, I say was. The cab and hood are from 1977, and the sleeper is an able-bodied sleeper, but it's from a 1984 Superliner. So there's differences in the doors on this able-bodied sleeper versus the one that was called a road lounger on the truck in the movie Convoy.
Would they have removed that when they started working it, I assume?
So the able-body provided, I believe it was 5 sleepers for the movie.
Aha, were they being advertised, I assume, or something?
It was product placement kind of thing. Like Mack, because Mack provided a brand new truck for Rubber Duck, a brand new truck for Pigpen, and then matching gliders. By the time the movie was done and they started seeing pieces of it, Mack just completely broke away from the movie. They stopped all promotion. They did not like...
Because of the destroyed one, right?
Because of some of the content. And some of it got cut out from the movie. The one thing that really rubbed a lot of people, according to the historical records I found, was this scene that was cut with a hitchhiker named Darlene that Pigpen picks up. I won't go into it because family watches this, but there were some adult themes that were alluded to, just unsettling, and certainly not the kind of thing that any major brand wants their product attached to.
Right.
In 1977, 1978. So Mack had done that, given that, and Able Body Sleeper Company, Able Body Corporation, provided the sleepers, and then very late in production. So the movie was started filming last week of April 1977. Filmed through July 20th of 1977. Then they had to go on hiatus because Chris Christopher, they were supposed to have been done, but they were horribly over schedule, horribly over budget. And Chris Christopherson and his band, who incidentally were all the hippies in the movie, that was his band, they had a previous tour engagement that was written into their contract. They had to stop filming and disband everybody. They went to Needles, California in mid-August. They were filming the bridge scene the day Elvis died. After they got done in Needles, they reconvened back in New Mexico for 2 final weeks at the end of September. The movie had largely been filmed in sequence. They had so much missing at the end of by the July 20th hiatus, and the studio was just done. And they were trying to figure out the quickest path to get a complete movie. And so they gave them just 2 more weeks. But by that point, the trucks had already been towed across the bridge and shot at with steel shot. And one of the 2 tank trailers had already been blown up. So they had this trailer left, and then they had pieces of the 1977 and this truck and the matching glider. There was a twin to this truck that never got used and built out. And then there was the 1973 that went over the bridge into the river.
So there were
5.
5? Okay.
Well, there was 5. Take it back to 4 because the twin to this truck, this is serial number 6646. The twin to it, 6648. Went to the same cement, Gifford Hill, Portland Cement, who bought them new in 1970. They both wound up on the Convoy set, and you see the other one in the background a couple times, if you know what you're looking at, but it never got painted all black. It had white fenders, and it did not get the RD trucking treatment on it. But they kind of had it in case, but by the time all that was occurring, the $5 million budget was turning into $10 and $11 million and all sorts of stuff. So it just...
And they're sort of losing the time frame here of like getting it out when it's like in competition to other trucking movies at the time too, right?
Well, there's a whole series of things like that. The follow-on to Smokey and the Bandit. Smokey and the Bandit took the wind out of the sails for trucking movies. It kind of got a limited market, and that sort of went to the south and really took hold. The director was coked out of his skull and a brilliant man, but very compromised by his addictions at the time. The trucking fad had already kind of peaked a little bit and was waning. And so there was just a lot of things starting to work against it. It was supposed to have been in theaters by late 1977. And there was a whole cross promotion with Neiman Marcus. Neiman Marcus, which is a very high-end store, retail store, was going to give away or sell the Convoy truck and its Christmas catalog. And this is not rumor. I've got
Catalogs. Yeah.
lots of documentation on this theory that's how they wanted to do it. And it just, it was a group of people who were completely missing their target audience on multiple levels. And Mack, the big promoter, already had dropped the ball because they built a truck in March of 1977 for the movie that by the time the movie came out, you couldn't order because the RS700L got replaced by the Superliner in May, June of 1977. So the hero truck of the movie was no longer even in production at the time the movie came out. Like marketing blunders galore. The end was just trying to get something out there to recoup their money. Plus they had pre-sold like $3 million worth of revenue to Japanese interest, which was the way the EMI films had kind of worked. So, I mean, they were under the gun. They've already taken $3 million before the movie's even done filming. And they owed this completed movie and everything's just going wrong.
In the end, when it was finally released, did they make anything or were they in the hole? Did it have a good enough reception that it was worth it?
It did make money at the end. I mean, I want to say the gross was in the neighborhood of $50 million.
Okay, so it was worth it.
And they were just shy of $12 million into it all done. Part of that money also came from VHS sales, which was really the only thing that ironically saved Convoy was the advent of HBO and the VHS market. When HBO went national, they were trying to get recent movies that they didn't have to pay top dollar for. And Convoy was one of the ones they latched onto and they played it a lot. And VHS stores had a lot of copies of Convoy. It just became something that kind of kept spinning around in the background and it kept a little bit of life.
So for you personally, how old were you the first time you watched it?
I'm a 74 model. And so I would have seen it when I was about 4.5 years old.
In the theater?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, saw it in the theater.
How many times do you think, give me a rough estimate, you have seen it in your life?
Probably, hundreds and hundreds of times, probably approaching 1,000 or more.
I was going to say three digits or 4 digits.
Yeah,
How many copies have you gone through? Because I assume you wear them out.
The VHS, my as a kid, I had a VHS copy that was dubbed from a VHS, and I wore that thing out.
A tape of a tape.
And then I've had every DVD version of it, and all sorts of different things in that. But that led to the book I wrote and all the 6,000 plus behind the scenes photos and all these things that I've accumulated and collected for research. The movie is just a piece of, and all the archives from the Oscar Museum or the Oscar Library, excuse me. Margaret Herrick Library at the Oscar Foundation in California.
So you've had a lot of help along the way too.
Mack's proprietary top secret Convoy file. I went up there during COVID and got special dispensation from Mack to go up there and review their file and all this stuff. And it was just fascinating stuff that was pieced together, from here and there. But the gold mine was the Sam Peckinpah collection at the Margaret Herrick Library out in Los Angeles, California. There was so much information gleaned from that. Daily production notes, recordings of Peckinpah, the director, talking about the movie, different things that he wanted, what they were doing, stuff that went wrong, you name it. It was this massive collection of files. I spent a week out there, just blazing through the stuff because you could not copy it. You could only write handwritten notes or you could type. And there was stacks and stacks of files they had brought out for me that I had reserved.
So was the goal all this time to find the truck then?
Originally, I was just infatuated with the truck. Then I found the truck. I also found the 1977 that Mack built. That one I bought out in Los Angeles and brought it back. I've since sold it to collectors up in Canada. The chase and the pursuit became much more interesting than having it. With all the production staff and talking at least once a month with Ernest Borgnine for years and several other big key people from the film, not the principal actors, but behind the scenes. Really quickly, it started to interest me more than trucks was the the human story behind it and all the dysfunction, and how out of all of this dysfunction, there was from a truck nerd perspective, a really, really good cinematic depiction of 1970s era trucking. I mean, granted, on some goofy premise. But
every truck movie.
every
to
truck
be
movie. I mean,
honest.
it's boring, but then really seeing the whole story behind it, to me, became much more fascinating than just the truck. And so having all this and how did they wind up completing a movie given everything that occurred? It was stunning.
That's quite a research project
It,
too.
it was, yeah. And Doug Maney from the Mack Museum is the one that finally said, you ought to write a book about this. Eventually I did. And, put that out, and it just sort of a Dan gets hit by the bus scenario. And Patrick knows most of it. Dan and Patrick both get hit by the bus scenario. A lot of the information would have died with us. So we were trying to at least capture that. Nowadays, I'm 50, I'll be 51 this summer. Patrick will be 24 this year. The difference of what I know about trucking versus what Patrick knows about trucking is night and day difference, because I got brought up through the trucking world immediate post interstate highway completion. I'm an independent, not an owner operator mentality by one of my best friends. So I had experienced a lot of what was going on that Convoy was trying to capture. Patrick hadn't experienced that. He's grown up in this massive regulatory world, electronic diesels, all these other things that he doesn't have all the context of it. Like the corrupt sheriff. It's easy now to say, well, this is ridiculous. It wouldn't happen.
But it did.
It did. I mean, the stuff like the depiction of Lyle Wallace did is not far-fetched. I have multiple friends in the trucking industry that are now, in their 80s, that would tell completely credible stories with excellent details about small town law enforcement picking on the drive-through trucker. Some of it was horrible. And so the themes in that movie to the average person look far-fetched, but in reality, they're not as far off 1970s reality as one might think. I grew up in the era when trucking was big. BJ and the Bear, Smokey and the Bandit, Moving On, Duel. That's not a trucker movie, but all these truck-based
It's
themes.
a trucking movie.
Is
For anyone watching this video, it's a trucking
Highballing.
movie.
I mean, highballing is what is probably I like highballing more than Convoy.
I really like Highball.
Highballing is a great movie, and I will have the truck one day. So I'm not giving up till I find it.
I've interviewed the driver.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I've watched that video multiple times.
That
yes.
was pretty amazing.
Yes.
But we're like talking in all over the place here.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm picking around.
I'm going. You're telling the tale. We've talked about why you love the movie so much and how you've watched it, how much research you've done. Are you still researching it, or you think you've got about everything you can get on the story?
All the time. I mean, I don't hide the fact that I'm late diagnosed autism spectrum disorder, which anyone that kind of understands what's going on with this now gets it. And then Patrick and I have a lot of the same characteristics and qualities that Patrick has always noticed details that no one else would. I'd get a new license plate sticker. My plates are in a vehicle. He'd walk into school and say, "Oh, you got a new sticker on the plate. How did you see? How did you notice that?" So that level of detail is what
he's smiling off to the side.
If I could CB antenna,
CB.
there have been a few guys who I could automatically tell that they got like a new CB antenna or just anything like that.
New
stuff.
CB
it's every little
Anytime when somebody then stuff, they're like, "How do you even notice something that small?"
Well, something that you like when you notice a change. You're paying attention and you're in sync.
To that point, the property master for the movie and his son, it was the only movie they both worked on, Bobby Visiglia and Bobby Visiglia Jr. I talked to Junior. I said Junior, he's in his 70s now. But he was one of the early people I talked to, and he was fascinated by how I had detailed all the differences in the trucks.
Fascinated by your fascination?
Yes, because as he said, we never noticed any of that, he being the we. And he said, but you have to remember in 1977, they couldn't fathom that someone could sit in their living room with a high definition copy of a movie and watch it over and over and
see all their mistakes.
And see all the mistakes. That's what he said. That the technology has completely changed their field. But that he said all I had to do was look close enough as it drove across the screen for 2 seconds. And therein was the glitch, if you will, that opened the door to me seeing, well, there's this truck, stuff like that. So
let's go back to you finding the truck and them knowing that you would be there someday.
So I agreed to buy the truck. We come back out there to get it, to start the logistics of it in 2007. And in going to look at the truck and take pictures of it, we drive back and I see the tank trailer. It's sitting there with no wheels, no hubs. Its spindles are buried in the sand, and it's sitting there. And I said, "Oh my God, that's the trailer from the movie." And he's like, "No, it's not." I said, "Yeah, it is." And the gentleman, Ernie
At the
Bruin,
same place where the truck was,
yes,
right?
yes, in the same quarry with the police cars and the Malibu that's all crushed from going to the billboard. It's all there. What was? And so
It's all at your house now.
I wish it was, and I'll go into that for a moment. This nephew was a very fair man and very kind, but he was a businessman, and he had no interest in trucks and couldn't fathom my interest in them, and especially why I wanted a tank trailer where the tank had been cut out of it, because it was an asphalt tanker, one of 20 built for a company in 1960, and the steel inner tank is completely cut out of it. And it's what
To
you
make
see,
it lighter or something?
well, what you see, the aluminum skin there, that aluminum skin is just being held in place by a bunch of angle iron. That was done to prep the trailer to blow up on the bridge. And there's a whole bunch of stories about that. And the first thing they did actually went wrong. What you see in the movie is just cinematic art. The truck goes off, the cab goes off the bridge, the tractor goes off the bridge, and the trailer just sits up on top of the bridge and doesn't blow up. It takes like another 10 seconds to blow up. And what you're seeing is cut shots to make it look like it all happened at the same time, but it did not. And the director wants to redo it and prep another truck to go in the river and blow up the other trailer. And they're like, we can't do that because we have to have that trailer to go back and shoot in September. So lots of stuff like that. So I find a trailer and I tell him, I've got to have this. And he says, well, okay, but, and I'm thinking something in 5-figure range, mid 5 figures is what I'm expecting. And he's explaining he has to shut down the quarry. They got to use a loader to load it on the truck for me.
To get it out.
To get it out and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, Lord. And he shot me a price that was in the couple $1,000 range. And I said, are you kidding? And he's like, no, I got to have that. And I said, it's worth more than that. And he said, if you give me that, we're square. And I said, well, how about I give you X? And I can also take this, and this. And he said,
well, you're cleaning up the quarry for him too at this point a little bit.
And right. So, and I told him I wanted to come back for the police car and the police cars and the axle set from the tanker that blew up and the Malibu. And then they wound up having a family member get very sick and have to go into care. And they had to sell everything and scrap to come up with funds. And God bless them, that's what you got to do. And by the time I got word of it, it already had happened. And God bless them all. So,
but here they
but
are
I've got great
now.
photos of it all. So at least I documented it, thankfully. So I got that. We go back out there. We get the truck and what's left of it and the tank trailer. I had already started accumulating parts for a replica. So we kind of merged the projects and we used everything we could from the wreck truck, but then tried to make this truck rebuild into the 1977 style that Mack built for the movie. There's a couple big differences from its appearance in the movie. When this truck was in the movie, it had the old style Mack steel dash cab with the shallow back wall, and it had the RS 700L hood with the fenders that are higher. That angled swoop line, the fenders basically set as high as that swoop line. And in late 1972, Mack changed to this style hood. And in 1973, Mack came out with this cab they called a +3, which increased by 3 inches the back wall. And then in 1976, the battery box and the air tank arrangement changed. So we converted the cab, the hood, and the battery box and fuel and the air tank arrangement to match the 1977. And the air cleaner that's on it is a Telltale air cleaner from a Mack tip turbine engine, which the 1977 purpose-built truck had. This truck always has had a Cummins from the day it left the factory. So in the movie, it had a single intake air cleaner. We put the Mack tip turbine air cleaner on it, again, to give it the external appearance. We tried to make this truck look like they should have made this truck look like in the movie, if that makes sense.
And I believe I was told that the truck's voice was dubbed. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So the most of the time in the movie, what you hear is the sound of a Detroit diesel engine. Some will argue 8V71, others say it's 8V92. It was an 8V71 with a 13-speed transmission behind it. It was the engine that you hear, that you see, or it's the engine you hear, is the engine that was in the Kenworth K100 cab over tow truck for Malcolm Wrecking. It's a red, white, and blue Kenworth tow truck that keeps showing up in different spots. That was the truck that's the engine you're hearing.
But it's not the actual engine that's in the truck.
None of the Macks had a Detroit diesel engine in them. None. Zero. This one had a Cummins, and the first unit truck, the principal one, had a Mack ETA Z676, the tip turbine, 283 horsepower Mack.
So the engine that's in this truck right now was not in this truck like a week ago, right?
Sore subject. Yeah, this engine, Patrick and I have been working feverishly to get a new engine in this truck, because back in September, on the way to a show in St. Louis, we spun the cam bearings at the 5th and 6th cylinder out of the blue. And so that engine wound up being trash. It was supposed to have been a big cam 400. As we got into it, it was a shade tree 400. It was a block from a 300. It was pistons and liners from a 315.
Frankenstein.
It was a disaster. So we just tossed it all and went with a big cam 400 that has basically no hours and no miles. It came out of a Oshkosh P19 airport fire truck.
And you just put it all together?
We just put it all together. It literally got the last thing buttoned up yesterday evening.
Did you take it for a test drive before hopping
About 5
in?
miles. And then 400 miles up to here.
We've got some storm clouds coming
Yes.
in. Would you be willing to open up the hood to see that
Sure.
shiny engine?
Yeah, we can.
Before any rain hits? Oh, is it too much work you have to move this too?
It was handy. Yeah, it's a whole new engine, and fun fact, it's got a whole new it has a whole new transmission in it too. So we just got down to putting a super 10 speed in it stuff too and stuff, because as we were pulling out the powertrain, we dropped the so we pulled out the transmission connected with the engine, and then as we pulled out and stuff, he started spinning the bearings on it, and then we realized that it has bad bearings, and the guy that we would normally use to rebuild it, I guess, went out of business a few years back. So I get on Vanderhags and I start researching, and I find a 10 speed that's cheaper than all the others. I just sent it to him, and then we got it a couple of days later, and then literally a week after we got the transmission stuff, we found out that it was a Super 10 transmission. So
C'est la vie.
So what would the transmission and is it the correct?
This truck in the movie had a 13-speed. The truck that Mack built for the movie had a fuller 10-speed in it. So putting a 10-speed in this is more correct for what the 1977 had in it. Yeah, so this is not complete. This was as complete as we needed it to be to come up here. We had a new power steering reservoir. It's leaking, so I haven't put that on yet. Lots of little details that need to get tied up, but we got it good enough to drive up here.
Are you a truck driver? Like, what's your background?
He is.
I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is. I work for in the fire service. I've had several trucking companies, and I drove trucks to pay for college. But other than that, I just mess with them. Storage trailers, buying and selling old trucks, fixing them up, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then on mine, first of all, before I became a truck driver, I had multiple mechanics jobs for a bunch of mutual friends of ours in the trucking region around St. Louis. Last fall and stuff, I found this job for a company based out of Carlton, which is within the Dallas region, that remanufactures and then buys and sells all brand new, used and remanufactured factory Mopar and Ford parts. I got that gig, and I've been with them for 6.5 to 7 months now. So put the icing on the cake and stuff, so they have this thing, where you can take our own trucks home and stuff. So I won't have to drive, 3 miles to get my truck to and from the house and stuff. It's literally just a mile and a half both ways.
He's got a take-home truck.
Yeah.
So how long have you had this?
I sold it in 2015, to Anthony Fox down in Rome, Georgia. Bought it back 2.5 years ago and brought it back to St. Louis, and normally it sits at the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis. The catch on this is the damage on a tank trailer.
Let's talk about it.
All right. The two tank trailers, the main difference between them is in the top of the ladder. This one's had that slope, and then the other one that got blown up on the bridge was more squared off at top. Don't know why. One or the other had its ladder replaced at some point. But you see the tube down the side where the hose would go, that is damaged from going into the mock-up jail in what they called Alvarez, Texas, but it was Estancia, New Mexico. That's when that got crushed. And the ladder got cocked. The spill box on top is wood. That's what they reconstructed the spill box out of wood when they cut out the tank. And then, let's see if you can. Yeah, if you film up, there's an opening inside the trailer there that lets you see the.
I've never stood in a tank before. It's all just a facade.
It is just a facade.
So the tank came from the same place as the truck originally? Is that
No,
right?
no.
Oh.
The tanks, the two tank trailers came from the same company, but the tractor came from a cement company. Now, Spider Mike's Diamond T came from the same company as the tank trailers, Don Ward. Isn't that wild in there?
That is crazy.
And what you see here is just like they did in the movie. This is just painted over silver. That is all asphalt remnants
They
that are all over
painted
that.
over the asphalt?
Yep. And if you look, the best shot is when Rubber Duck is
Look at that, it's everywhere.
walking up alongside the trailer at Raphael's to get in the truck to leave. You can see all that grit painted over silver. They just painted the whole trailer silver. This is exactly as we found it. And then back here, these were installed. The explosive charges were set in the back of this. When they're firing at the rear of the trailer and you see the initial explosion, if you stop frame it, you'll see the explosion start here and here. That was this trailer. And then this back here is where the valve was. That's all cut out because they were getting ready to blow this trailer up till they said they couldn't do it. So throughout the movie, even this one had a valve here till the very end.
I think the weather's about to make us stop.
It is, yeah.
And I know you were going to have him drive it around back here, right?
Oh, we're
And
gonna
I
tomorrow.
probably-
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks so cool with the storm clouds.
It does.
though.
It does.
So is this its first outing, really, since you got it all? I mean, put together, but like it is now. But was it drivable before this last week?
No,
Not at all.
it wasn't drivable before yesterday at noon.
So since it was crushed down to
yep.
pretty far,
Yep.
how did you end up finding replacement everything?
Piece here and a piece there. It was just buying several other trucks as donor trucks. But the original doors that were on this truck that have the Bruin logo decal on them, I have one and the other one's up at the Mack Museum. And they peeled away, as I started to, they peeled away the big circular Bruin decal and you can see the original hand-painted RD trucking, which, long story, is what allowed me to trademark that. So I hold the trademarked RD trucking and the rights to it, because when the studio sold that truck to the Bruins, that was the only remaining RD Trucking logo. And Bruins got that by default. Then when I bought the truck from the Bruins, the rights went to me. That was a lot of lawyer work.
Yeah, so just slowly release it and then just put your foot like that. No, like down more. More.
Is that?
Yeah, you really don't have to touch it. It's got so much horsepower. Yeah, okay, so just release it.
He's got the sticky.
There you go. Now you're getting it. Yeah, and just keep your foot in. Yes, just like that.
So we are.
Yeah, it's kind of sensitive, so just.
That is the.
Yeah, so just down. So just give it more throttle. Just take.
Down?
Yes. There you go. Yes, slow order.
That is the most sensitive.
Oh yeah, these.
There we go.
Yeah, these old Macks are very sensitive. Yeah.
All right, now pre-select.
Well, okay, get up the speed more, like same as right shutting a truck. Okay. Yes. Now pre-select it and then shift. Shift. Just stop. Okay, now. There you go.
Good job. You're a good teacher. Jeez, that is so sensitive.
Okay, down. Then a release. There you go. Now you're getting it. Okay. Okay, go. Okay, now. End. Okay. There you go. Well, riding here in my rubber duck truck, and I've got the Whirlpool I know like I'm Miss Flatbed Red here behind the driver's seat. Miss Red, what do you think of driving the world famous rubber duck truck? How do you like it?
I am shocked that I haven't failed miserably so far.
Yeah, it's one of a kind.